In our towns and in our cities, whether in Africa, Scotland, or Spain, there are values in the human spirit we'll find time and time again. So don't be sad for precious people we can never truly replace, but celebrate the spirit they have left with us always.
My Yoruba name, what friends like to call me Sheke, which is Ola Sheke, a child that you can pet. That's what it means. Yeah, but my Christian name is, when you're Christian, you the English name is Caroline from Nigeria. Well, the reason why I came here was I have a friend who came to Glasgow in 56. And then in 58, so he sent for me. Well, he sent for me. Then I came over. Then you travel by boat, which takes 14 days to get to Liverpool. So from Liverpool, you take a train here anyway. So when I arrived here, he found a hospital for me to do my training, which was here Myers Hospital in Eskebride. So I went there and I started nursing training, and then it doesn't work for me, so I just came to Glasgow, 1959. So I've been in Glasgow ever since. But when we came to Glasgow, and I kept meeting friends, and I said, wait a minute, I think we're in the wrong place. I said, we're not in Glasgow. And then one of them said, what do you mean? I said, you don't hear how they speak? I said, I don't understand anybody, and nobody understands me. I said, how could we stay here? And there are people, when they come here, when they hear how the Glaswegian speaks, I said, no, they won't understand it. Pew! They go back to London. Honestly, there are a lot of people in London, just very few of us. And I said, when I go to that place, I just stay, live or die. I'll just stay here because I don't like what I hear about London. So I stayed here and I met my ex-husband, and then we got married, and then we got 2 children, a boy and a girl. Because you couldn't get a house, you couldn't get a flat, they won't give you one. If they go open the advertise and you press the bell and then you said, you're looking for a room, oh, sorry, just been taken. And then maybe a nice Glaswegian white, we go back there and say, well, just wait a minute. And then they tell him to come in, and then they give the room to him. And then we were living in Buccleuch Street, it was number 11. It was somebody, I think he was a Polish man. He was living opposite the flat. And then one day, he just met my husband, and then he told me, there's a flat, for sale opposite him. By the, what do you call these people that get your money? They don't do anything. Factors, And then he went to see them, and then we were so lucky, and then we bought the flat for £170. 1959, 60. And then my husband was like, oh, man, buying flats. And then he came in one day and said, I saw another flat in Hill Street, just next street to Buccleuch Street. So when I went to say, I said, this is better, just two rooms, and 1 room and bedroom. You know what they call it then? 2 apartments anyway. They communicate with you, but when they see you, this is my own experience, but when they see you with their friends, they pretend as if they don't know you. Oh, I don't blame them for that. Some of them, honestly, it may be somebody you're working with, and you're both walking down in the street, and they see one of the white people that knows them, they just pretend as if they don't know you. But you get used to that. You come through that. You get through that barrier. Eventually, people are people. Because I went to Nigeria, I went back home, and that was in 19 67 or 68. Oh, I can just remember, you know. And then when I was there, I was told, because we were quarreling, my husband and I said, I'm not going back. And then, you know, my dad, he was an old one, you know, said, you don't know what? I said, I'm not going back, Dad. He said, your husband is sick, you're not going back. What are you doing here? So that's why I came back again to Glasgow. And then I left my children, 2 children, with their uncle. He was in the military, you know, and I left them with him. So when I came and saw my husband, it's not really well. And then there was a war started in Nigeria. Maybe you remember the Biafra war started in Nigeria. I said, oh my God, I'm sitting here eating fish and chips and my children were running up under the bed during the war. And I said, well, just send them to me, please. So they sent me my 2 children, you know, and we all live ever happily after.
I came to Glasgow in the year 1964. No, I'm telling lies. 1965, the 11th of February. And I arrived on the 11th in Glasgow, very cold. Very, very cold. And this big house with 4 big rooms. And there were 4 people living in this house and just 1 bathroom and 1 toilet. And the kitchen was just 1 big kitchen. You've got to take it in turns to go in and make breakfast, even to wash. You've got to take it in turns. To get hot water was very, very difficult. Because if you don't light there was a fire in the sitting room, and you've got, it's a coal fire, and that heats the water all over the house. So that coal fire has to be lit every day to have hot water to wash and to cook. Also, I would say those days things were very, very reasonable because the wages weren't all that great. So you get a pint of milk for a penny. Sugar was something like 5 pence for a kilo. And bread was cheap. I would say the wages, if I could fully remember, was something like, I think, £8 or £15 a week. Well, I came to join my husband. My husband was here as well. So he came first, and then I came too. Now, snow, that was in February. I couldn't understand how this ground was so white, and to walk on the snow was very, very difficult because in Africa we don't have anything like snow. There was nothing like that. So it was difficult for me to walk on the snow, and you have to have a special footwear. I fell a lot of times, and my fingers were nippy, as well as my toes. Nobody explained to you, what you should really buy in the shops to keep yourself warm. My husband was working, but I never had a job for quite a long time. I was a teacher before I came here, but there was no way I could go into teaching here because of the mentality of the kids here. And I'm black, to stand in front of a classroom, the difficulties I could get from them. Then all of a sudden I said to myself, I might as well go into nursing. Then I went into midwifery, and I was in midwifery till I retired. But it wasn't easy at all, not easy.
I came to Scotland from down south. I was in England for 3 years because I arrived in England 1970. And as you say, culture shock. I was very homesick. I used to be crying all night. I was 25 then. I felt homesick then. But nevertheless, I finished my training in Bath. And then I decided to come up to Scotland, 1973. In a way, I was very nosy in a sense that during my school days at home, we had quite a lot of expatriates, Scottish, and they teach you about all these locks. So I applied to a hospital here, and I was accepted. I was accepted in both areas, Hampstead and Scotland. So I said, well, come to Scotland, seeing that with the connection from my teachers. And I came 73, okay. I was in a nurse's home. Fortunately for me, when I came, the hospital that I went to, I met my friend there. And she was from the Gambia, I was from the Gambia. So it was a relief to know that you got somebody. So usually when you go in on duty, you're in the nurse's home in one end of the city, and you go into the hospital where you are allocated. And those days, actually, you standing at the bus stop waiting for buses. And it's during the night that we were really insecure in most cases, especially the area where the nurse's home was. So much so, we used to sort of get ourselves together to go to the bus stop so that we wouldn't be met with teenagers, mostly young kids, congregating certain area, either when you're getting on the bus or when you're getting down the bus. They are there, and those days, in a way, we are not complaining to anybody about the harassment or the insults that you have from them. I can fully well remember on some occasion those days, kids, stones will be thrown at you, but what can you do? Mm-hmm. Those times we used to be looking for the bus to come sooner, okay, so that you can jump into the bus, at least you are inside the bus. But nevertheless,
You see, I could never have done nursing, or no matter. My mother was the local midwife, nurse in our village, delivered all the babies, and because we come from, our area is a farming community. When people chopped their fingers, or no, they didn't chop them off. When they injure themselves chopping wood or something, or they used to come to be bandaged by my mom, and she always asked you to hold this, and the blood was dripping everywhere, and I actually knew the panic voice of people coming to our homestead. If I could tell exactly when there's a crisis, and I would run the opposite way before they come in, because I just did not want anything to do with blood, so there was no way. Now, perhaps seeing the value of nursing, I would be, after nursing my kids and bringing them up, and you change. But when I was young, that's the last career on my mind. In fact, I wanted to be, those days, they used to call them air hostesses. I had read, I loved literature and geography, and I read about all places like Egypt, Mesopotamia, the 9 wonders of the world. And I actually came with this brilliant idea that if I become air hostess, I'll travel to all these places. My mom said, no, that's not a job for a young, good woman. So I didn't do that. I went into teaching. But it's also, again, somebody of my age from Europe, a woman like that, when you see the other women who were flying and all that. I did not have to be an air hostess. I could have been a pilot. In a way, I'm glad that I went into teaching, because I ended up traveling the world anyway from a different perspective. But I think those things actually also form you, and they strengthen you, and it's like a foundation of later years. I don't think without the grounding I would have survived in Europe. It's not just the racism, the isolation, the discrimination, the loss of identity, loss of status. And I mean, I tend to say I was a teacher in Kenya, and and those days teachers were really respected. It was a very prestigious job to do. It still is in a way, but then, because we are like the first or second generation of Kenyan teachers, before that, the most schools were run by white people, so it was really a high status job. And then I fly to UK, and 8 hours flight completely obliterates everything about me. I become nothing. It was such a shock to come here and realize I'm not as valued and as important as I was back home. Mine was actually at Heathrow. Educated as I was and as a teacher, I knew not everybody in Britain is rich. Like not everybody in Africa is poor. But actually to see white people cleaning in Heathrow and Asians cleaning, because in Kenya status was based on you are white or Asian or Africans who are at the bottom. And we never ever saw a white man or woman cleaning, or Asian woman cleaning. I kind of was just looking at them like this. It's a seeing. I knew white people must clean in Europe, but somehow to see it happen was such a cultural shock. It's floored me. Just like, wow. Because when I was growing up, every white person we met was either a doctor, a teacher. They lived in a big house. They had servants. So, and here I am, somebody serving me tea and cleaning around the table. I think I wrote to my sisters as soon as I could about it. That was a cultural shock, to see that Britain was not as was made out to be. And then I think later on, it's because I grew up in a Christian Church of Scotland tradition. There was always the message of being Christian and how Christian related to other people. But then to be in a Christian country and people are so horrible to me, calling me names. I didn't go to church for a long, long time because my early experiences were horrid in the church. I cannot understand how church-going people can also be so racist. But then perhaps I had forgotten apartheid and the slave trade, which you can easily. So those kind of things don't relate to you when you're fighting your own battles. But later on, meeting other people and having discussions, we were reconnecting with those other struggles, the civil rights movements, all of them, how most of the horrendous things were policies like America and South Africa were all by people who believed they were created superior by God. I think those ideological differences were also a bit of a problem.
At the height of our problems in South Africa, the struggle against apartheid, 1976, which is the year with the uprisings in Soweto and so forth. My husband came over to study, here in Glasgow. So I followed him and joined him. I traveled from Cape Town, which is my hometown. That's where I was born and brought up. And traveling, unfortunately, I had to come from Cape Town to Athens, and then from Athens to Luxembourg. Luxembourg to Belgium and then to Heathrow. And it was then that I had to. I thought that there was a taxi that would take me from Heathrow to Glasgow, not knowing the distance. And nonetheless, I managed to get to Victoria bus station to get the bus to Glasgow. So it was a long travel from Cape Town to Glasgow. When I arrived, first of all, I was so relieved to come to a place where I could, sleep the whole night without, the interference by the South African police, because they could come into your home where I come, in Cape Town at any time they liked, and, to come to a place where you could sleep the whole night and having no disturbances was so great. I appreciated that. And the people of Glasgow, of course, are amazing, kind of welcoming. You'd meet one or two who are not used to seeing a black face, but you'll find that at any place, at any given place. My biggest achievement, because we never had a decent education in South Africa as such, because of the apartheid system. We had what is called a Bantu education, which is a very inferior form of education. And I knew that one day I was going to go somewhere to better myself educationally. And while I was doing my nursing part-time, I went to Annisland College, and I started there, though I was, quite mature, as it were. And when I was in Annisland College, the lecturers and the tutors encouraged me to further my studies. I don't know whether they might have seen something in me, and I went to Strathclyde University to study the social sciences, and I came out with an honours degree in history. That is my greatest achievement. Though I couldn't find a job, I tried to get out of nursing to do something else with my degree, and I couldn't do that. And of course I see that even the young ones are struggling to get any employment. And I believe that is my greatest achievement. When I see the scenery of Scotland, I said to one of the lady friends as well, that I think God took his time when he was creating Scotland. It's so beautiful. There's some parts in the countryside that are just extraordinarily beautiful. Well, I think I came to the right place in Glasgow. I've adapted to many things, be it the social, the political, and otherwise. People make Glasgow, and I believe in it. That is true.
Coming here, the cultural shock was great. Okay, in the beginning things were good. Rotten Row used to be a very academic place for nurses, midwives to train, and we were all international, and the competition academically was very, very, very keen. Well, for me, I was lonely, because when you are at work, people are pleasant to you because we are professional people. And beyond your work, nobody wants to have a relationship with you. You meet people on the street, and somebody you think you've known because you've been working with that person, you say hello and they turn their face. They don't want to associate with you. And I said, okay, if that be the case, I didn't know anyone from where I came from. I didn't know anyone at all. If I had somebody to say to me, if they call you hen, not to worry. If they call you pet, it's no big deal. For instance, I was working at the Glasgow Royal Infirmary, and I was the one in charge of the surgical ward. I used to run away from the telephones because I could not hear a word of what anybody said. And this, likewise, people were struggling with my accent. So I think that's where my confidence began to wade a bit. Okay, so it was a dual
They couldn't understand me, I couldn't understand them. But as I said, if I had somebody to educate me, things would have changed. But maybe I was being prepared for a role, Maybe that inspired me to set up my own group. And by good fortune, I knew quite a few nurses. So I got all these very talented women together and we used to have meetings. So we agreed to form a group so we can support each other. That's how it started. So forming the group has been the pipeline for some time, but it was 1988 that we formally met to agree that. Before then, I had sat down and calculated. I wanted a name that abbreviation would be perfect. So I wrote things until I came African Caribbean Women Association, ACWA. So I set it up so that the experiences I was having will be in a position to educate those who are around and those who will be coming in. So they will be in the know. So they will know the slangs. So they will know how people behave here. Certain things which are said are not meant to hurt, but because we don't know, so we take it serious. So that was the aim.
I came to Scotland in 1990 from Zambia, and it was my first ever long trip to Europe. And my first impression was, whoa, this is cold, because it was the middle of winter, December, and just coming out of the plane, the cold hit me. But I was excited because I was looking forward to meeting people, good friends, family, and really experiencing what the UK was like. I was very interested and very open because I had never read a lot about it. We learnt about it at school, but I hadn't heard about the differences, because usually in when you're learning in the education system, a lot of focus is on England. You don't actually know a lot about Scotland, Wales, Ireland. You just think of Britain as England. So Scotland, oh, that was something new. And when I got to Scotland, it was winter and there was snow, and I had never seen snow, never touched it. I remember we created a huge snowman, same height as me. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. I really had a good first impression of Scotland. Everybody was friendly and happy. Yeah. I think the challenge was, would I be accepted for me, the way I am, without compromising myself too much? And also, would I be able to, would I be able to fit in? Would I be able to get work? What the procedures, understanding the processes and procedures, it was totally different. So I had to do a lot of learning. I was quite a shy person, and it was quite difficult to express myself fully, because you have to get to know people before you really open yourself up. That's the way it was. That's the way I've grown up. And here you were just expected, if you met somebody and you just speak. And I found that quite difficult because I was quite reserved. So it took me a while. Aqua, we need to have some Aqua women going into politics. That's what I would like to see. We need to get all these women in there. Well, there's so many skilled people in there to start pushing into politics, into Scottish politics, into the landscape. That's my ambition.
I'm originally from Nigeria. My husband, when he was training to be a gynecologist, he lived in Belfast, Northern Ireland. We got married in Nigeria. Over there, I was a civil servant. I had just graduated and got a job with the Department of Education. 18 months down the line, I was in Belfast. And then after that, I had two kids in Belfast, 1981 and 1982. After which we were all over the place because a trainee doctor is not settled until he's a consultant. We lived in London, Wales, and then eventually he decided to take a job in the Middle East. And in 1996, we came back to Britain with the kids when he got a job as consultant gynecologist in Lewis, Western Isles. So we lived there. After 8 years, he died of cancer. He was ill and died, and I was left with the children, the last two, for another 3 years before they were old enough to come to university. And we relocated to Glasgow. The first impression and the first coming was exciting, I have to say. You know, you are going to a new country, you have a new husband and a new life waiting for you. Exciting and frightening at the same time. I had never left home. So it was exciting and looking forward to a new life. And then by the time I got to Belfast, the excitement soon worn off because it was lonely. You know, you're sort of locked in all the time. But I went to university as soon as I got here, I have to say. I made some good friends. But then you sort of meet in the pub. You don't do home visits like we do, you know. I did a postgraduate diploma in education at the Queen's, Belfast, and I had some classmates who would invite you to the pub, and then we got there and we played, gambled on horses. We gambled on horses, and yeah, that was nice. So those were the good days. Stornoway was another cup of tea. It's an island, and the first time we came, I would say it was exciting because I was now coming back with 5 kids to Stornoway, and I thought, oh my God, this is the end of the earth. But then, Stornoway, in terms of people's behavior and all that, was more like home because we didn't lock our doors. You didn't need a key. I had the one key to the front door for 11 years. And you weren't scared that somebody would burgle you or anything. You know, and then all the neighbors were very, very friendly and sort of in and out of each other's houses. And it looks like many people had not really been that close to black people. So they found it to be a novelty, you know. One day, myself and my husband went into a post office. And as we were coming out, we just came face to face with 2 men. And one of them almost had a heart attack. And we just laughed and said, it's okay, it's okay. And he was like, geez, where are you from? I said, we come from Africa. We live here. You know, we were the only black people for a long time. And we were the first black people ever to buy a house in Lewis, to own a house there in Stornoway. I would say on the whole, it was a positive experience for my children. It was more of positive discrimination for my children rather than against, because they were the only black children in the school. The secondary school was very good. Very, very good for my children. They allowed my children to grow. They all did very well academically. They all had all the support in the world. And I can proudly say I have 2 doctors, 2 nurses, and 1 pharmacist. And my advice to my children is go for it. Go for whatever you want. Don't let anything or anybody stop you.
In our towns and in our cities, whether in in Africa, Scotland or Spain, there are values in the human spirit we'll find time and time again. So don't be sad for precious people we can never truly replace, but celebrate the spirit they have left with us always. Don't let nostalgia leave you paralyzed with loss. Rather sow the seeds, instill the values that underwrite those times. And all your memories, take the best of them to share, till the legacy is living all around us every day.